Welcome to LFN News, a production of LFN Media, bringing you the latest in celebrity news, with specific analysis to keep you in the know of what is going on around you. Well, in part 1 of this feature, we hinted on a school of thought that maybe, just maybe, Sony Music could be behind R. Kelly's recent allegations that have seen him now spend close to 3 years in prison, and also seen his finances driven down the drain. But to fully understand this school of thought on who could truly be behind R. Kelly's troubles, we have to dig deep into the genesis of R. Kelly's fallout with Sony Music. Analysts argue that although it's easy to assume that Sony Music was merely pressured by the Me Too movement to part ways with R. Kelly, this was all a disguised move to keep themselves in the good books, and not draw attention to their well-orchestrated master plan intended to bring R. Kelly's whole career down. Why so though? Is what we shall detail for you in this part 2 of the feature. Kelly's rose with Sony's subsidiary label RCA, that was managing R. Kelly's music, became eminent in the wake of his recent allegations, in the wake of the infamous Surviving R. Kelly documentary series and the Mute R. Kelly campaign. R. Kelly had been with Sony since the early days of his career, and had been under contract with its subsidiary label RCA, since 2012. Kelly's last release with the label was a Christmas-themed album in 2016, although he has released several songs independently since that time, presumably with Sony's consent. On January 1, 2019, R. Kelly started the new year by releasing a song called Born to My Music. It will probably be the last new R. Kelly song released in a while. 2 days later, Lifetime aired the first 2 episodes of its jarring 6-part docuseries Surviving R. Kelly, greatly tarnishing R. Kelly's image. How timely. Sony was careful at how they gradually edged out R. Kelly. It's rumored that there was a petition being passed around, trying to get R. Kelly dropped from the label. Campaigners from the Mute R. Kelly pressure group allegedly delivered a petition, signed by some 217,000 people to Sony headquarters in New York City, asking the record company to drop the musician. RCA, however, tactfully started by putting a financial freeze on all R. Kelly's new music, meaning the label would not put any money behind Kelly's new music or music video whatsoever. Kelly is said to have been very frustrated with this development because he had been making new music at the time and he could not get budgets for music videos. More so, at the time, he owed RCA 2 albums, and many actually believe that because of that, it would be too hard for RCA to fully drop R. Kelly, and that if it were to happen, it would be an amicable split. The Surviving R. Kelly docuseries had also greatly affected R. Kelly's capacity of getting guest appearances. The aftermath of the docuseries premiere saw several artists like Lady Gaga, Chance the Rapper, Celine Dion, John Legend, Ciara and many others specifically distance themselves from the R&B king, with some even going as far as apologizing for having worked with the singer, and others pulling their collabos with him from streaming services. The docu series had effectively tainted the R. Kelly brand. By January 18, 2019, Sony Music had decided to quietly dissolve its working relationship with R. Kelly. With no external announcement of the move, it's alleged that the company took its time to wade through the issues responsibly to avoid legal ramifications, but this was evidently far from the truth. R. Kelly was resultantly removed from the RCA Records website, which lists the label's signed artists. An insider source, however, notes that efforts to extricate Sony from its contract with Kelly had been ongoing for several months, even way before the Surviving R. Kelly premiere. Could that mean that plans to have him off the label were looming, even before the allegations? Could the allegations, and subsequent protests, have been just a scapegoat for the label to justify their actions? Which could have been part of a well-orchestrated plot, planned months before, to bring R. Kelly's career down? But why? Well, sources close to the record label also reveal that Sony and R. Kelly had had a fallout, even way before the allegations, allegedly stemming from R. Kelly's backlog in albums for the label. R. Kelly allegedly owed the label 2 full albums ahead of the allegations. It is also said that R. Kelly had consistently complained about specific details in his contract with Sony that had always fallen on deaf ears. Analysts also argue that Sony is known to take such clandestine moves to save itself from losing money through bad contracts, such as supposedly the case of Michael Jackson. Back in 1995, Sony ATV Music Publishing was established when Sony got into partnership with Michael Jackson. The joint venture later acquired Army Publishing and went on to own more than 3 million copyrights to date. Sony and Michael Jackson later fell out in the wake of 2002 artists' rights bandwagon. Michael Jackson allegedly accused Sony of questionable accounting practices, turning up the pressure by recruiting activist the Reverend Al Sharpton and lawyer Johnny L. Cochran Jr. to launch an initiative to emancipate him and other recording artists from unfair contracts. Jackson alleged Sony was improperly requiring him to pay substantial sums of money that the company contended the singer owed, for cash advances and promotion and production costs associated with his album, Invincible. Jackson had insisted he did not owe Sony any money and had continually called into question the way the label had accounted for his royalty payments. Theorists say it was this initiative by Michael Jackson that prompted his circumstantial death, as he continued to have several other foes with Sony over the years leading to his death. Sony is held responsible for the numerous defamation attempts against Michael leading to the period before his death, and analysts say it's probably the failure of their attempts that compelled them to opt for a more lethal approach. On June 25, 2009, Michael Jackson died of a cardiac arrest at the age of 50, as a result of a deadly cocktail of sedatives and an anesthetic, which was administered by his physician, Conrad Murray. Murray alleged he attempted to revive Jackson, when he found him unresponsive in his room, though statements have questioned his CPR technique and the fact that he chose to do it on a soft bed, rather than a hard surface as any physician would know best. Questions also arose regarding the time it took Murray to get help, as a whole 30 minutes passed, before security at the North Carrollwood Drive property eventually made the call to paramedics. It was later concluded the death was a homicide and Murray was charged with involuntary manslaughter in November 2011. Well, all signs imply this was a well-orchestrated plot to end Michael Jackson's life, and who better a culprit than Sony, the label that was bound to bag billions of dollars at the news of his death? Sony went on to silence Michael Jackson's family by buying out his shares in the Sony ATV partnership, remitting just over $500 million to his children. The same pattern is visibly evident in R. Kelly's case, and it's easy for one to see that it's only a cooperation as big as Sony that could have the needed level of wealth and influence to pull off such a wide-scale act of defamation against an artist like R. Kelly. But all hope is not lost. R. Kelly has the one thing that Michael might not have had, and that's God's favor upon his life. Signs are already clear that slowly but surely, the truth will come out, and this truth will eventually set R. Kelly free. That's all we had for you today. Please let us know in the comment section below whether you buy into this school of thought that Sony Music could actually be behind R. Kelly's troubles. We value your honest opinion. Thank you for watching LFN News, a production of LFN Media, giving you another view of issues at hand. To get notified whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now and hit the notification icon. And remember to give us your comment on the subject matter below.